I don't think 10 years ago, you and I could have both said, man, LinkedIn is going to grow to become, one of the best organic reach, platforms for B2B companies. Like we both probably would have laughed and joked and be like, no, Facebook's going to dominate. And then all of a sudden, like there's a shift in this LinkedIn and this world that people are like, this LinkedIn stuff actually works.
Welcome to Pipelineology, the business-to-business podcast for agencies, consultants, coaches, and businesses looking to build a pipeline of hot prospects ready to buy their products and services. Never wonder where your next client is coming from. To learn more about our strategies, services, and for resources on building your sales pipeline, visit pipelineology.com. Now, on to the show.
Hey everybody, this is Gary Ruplinger. I am joined by Javier Lozano Jr., the #1 best-selling author, podcaster, B2B marketing and sales leader, and world champ athlete. Javier, welcome.
Thanks for thanks for inviting me, Gary. Really appreciate this. This is a great opportunity to talk shop. I love doing this kind of stuff.
Now I'm looking forward to this one as well, as this is a topic where I will be learning right along with our listeners, as we're going to be talking about LinkedIn Stories, kind of a new feature on the platform. But before we kind of jump into that, for people who aren't familiar with you, can you kind of give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been doing marketing for, I'd say 15, 17 years. I actually started my own business back in 2008. I opened my business in March 2008, and then the doors officially opened in September 2008, August. And as you probably know, the recession was official in September. So I had to deal with a great recession. I had to actually sign a 5-year lease, personal guarantee, would have owed over $300K. And I had two choices, either close shop or essentially get really, really strategic and good at creating sales systems, marketing systems that were duplicatable and generating me the right kind of leads to actually survive. And then about a decade or so later, I ended up selling the business for multi-six figures and started getting into consulting. Then I kind of wanted to dab into the B2B space and prove that my marketing methods worked in the B2B space, because a lot of people were like, well, that works in B2C, but it won't work in this space. And the last I checked, when you're selling and you're marketing to people, you're selling and marketing to a human. You're not selling and marketing to like enterprise Javier, like it doesn't work that way. And so I used, some time working at a commercial HVAC refrigeration company to, I'm not going to say refine my skill, but to prove my point that marketing, if done correctly, strategically, with a good overarching, approach, will grow your business. And to the point where we were bringing in leads from like Fortune 1000 companies organically. Like I wasn't paying for these leads. A lot of companies would actually kill for that kind of stuff.
Well, that is awesome. So how did you kind of get or pick LinkedIn as a platform, or how'd you kind of get into that?
Yeah. So when I took this job at CI Mechanical last year, February of 2019, I basically, looked at it as like, all right, this is an HVAC company. We're only going after commercial type businesses. So like think retail stores, think office property places, think of restaurants, that sort of stuff. We're only going after commercial, like facility managers is what we were like our ideal customer was. And I'm like, all right, these people probably are on Facebook, but I can't find them. It's going to be almost impossible. LinkedIn became the source for me. I started kind of diving into LinkedIn and started getting into LinkedIn groups and kind of started seeing what was out there. I was like, all right, so this is, some of the major industries. These are the groups that they're kind of in. And then I started essentially connecting with people within that industry, people that were going after my ideal customer, not necessarily in the same business, but we're all going after the same customer, or actual facility managers, property managers, those sort of people. And I just started organically connecting with these people. I wasn't pitching them. I wasn't saying, hey, do you need to buy HVAC services? It was nothing like that. It was like, hey, just want to connect, expand my network. We're both in the same group. Or I see that you're going to the trade show next month. Looking forward to possibly meeting you. It's very organic. And then I started using software to kind of help me increase my reach to allow me to do that. But what happened is that LinkedIn gave me an opportunity to start seeing the industry, because what I tell people is that I've never sold HVAC and refrigeration in my life. I've never marketed it, but I'm good at sales and marketing. I understand that stuff. And so all I needed to do was understand the language, understand like what was important to these people, and then making sure I can find a solution to their problems. And once I kind of figured that part out, LinkedIn became an easy platform to me to kind of start growing my audience.
Well, that's awesome. So do you find that for your needs, then you're primarily doing your marketing for your work all on LinkedIn, or do you use any other platforms?
At this moment right now, all on LinkedIn. So I basically, a couple of years ago, I started a consulting firm called Boulder Media Solutions, which is my marketing company. We essentially are kind of like a fractional CMO, if you will, or fractional marketing agency. So instead of someone having to hire an actual marketing person for their department and all that overhead, you pay a fraction of that. And so I kind of started toying around with seeing how LinkedIn worked with this aspect of it. And I started kind of just, after, I'll be honest here, I got laid off in July because of COVID for my previous job, nothing that I did wrong. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go after this stuff. I'm going to go after LinkedIn and start kind of cornering the market and using my marketing knowledge and going after this B2B space, going after facility services companies and those sort of stuff. And so it's actually helped me quite a bit because I created a reputation in this industry because there's no market leader right now. And essentially that's kind of what my goal is, to create that market leader and teach people how to properly market. Because if you're familiar with blue collar type businesses, their marketing strategies are horrible. And I'm not knocking them. They just don't know. I mean, they're really good at plumbing. They're really good at HVAC, but they're not really marketers. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with not being good at at everything. You just got to say, you know what, we need help in this. We should probably hire a professional. And so that's kind of what I've been doing, is putting a lot of organic content, sharing information, sharing my backstory, all that stuff. So people see that I'm not just some new kid on the block that's never done this before.
Well, that's very cool. So as someone who's using LinkedIn a lot, then I think this kind of leads into kind of the big topic we wanted to talk about today, was the new feature on the platform called LinkedIn Stories.
Yep.
I guess for those who are, as it's still kind of rolling out across the platform, what are LinkedIn Stories? I guess we'll kind of start with the very, very basics.
Yeah. So most people are probably familiar with Instagram and Facebook. Snapchat essentially created the first story, if you will, on social media. And essentially it's a 24-hour clip. All right. It's only available for 24 hours. And then it just deletes itself. It's gone. And so essentially Instagram kind of modeled that same thing and created their own stories version. And then Facebook obviously did the same thing as well too. As most people know, Facebook and Instagram, they're essentially one and the same. And it only made sense for LinkedIn to kind of follow that same kind of shift on allowing their users to create stories, which is a short 24-hour, only available for 24-hour clip that is less than 1 minute, that you basically share something. It's maybe a tip. It's maybe, you're documenting your day or some challenges you're going through or something, but you're essentially kind of sharing what's going on in your professional life, as opposed to like me sharing my workout, what I did today on Instagram. On LinkedIn, I would probably share about, this is one marketing strategy that's helped me grow my business, or this is a really cool tip that I learned from, John or something. So the idea is that you're just using it to document. And I know some people have said this before, but they're like, oh, I can't believe LinkedIn is copying Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff. And, honestly, that's the way the market's shifting and people are demanding that. So guess what? If people want it, you need to give it to them. That's just the easiest answer.
Okay. So is it just any type of, is it images? Is it video? Is it a combination, kind of like it can be on the other platforms, or what do they kind of format do they look for there?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So I personally like to do videos just because that's kind of my personality. I love doing podcast interviews. I love, getting in front of a camera. Like for instance, I just got access to LinkedIn Live. So I do those as well too. But where I'm getting to is that you can do a combination of both. And so you can do videos, you can do pictures, you can add text to where it says like what you're doing, or you can propose a question, or you can say, what's your favorite, whatever. So you can really start creating engagement with your audience. And what I recommend to people, and this is me as well too, is that you test it. You see what works, because what works for me on LinkedIn stories may not work for you, or may not work for the other person, because their audience isn't used to seeing them on video, or maybe their platform or their network isn't really into video. So they're more into images. So it's all about a trial and error and figuring it out. But what I tell people is use a little bit of both and see what happens. And then when you start getting a little traffic in one, then start kind of like, using that over and over again. So leverage both of them as far as video and images. Again, for me, I typically only do videos. Doesn't mean I shouldn't be doing images. I probably, now that we're talking about this, I should probably do more images as well too.
Cool. So I guess what kind of results are you seeing? Or if somebody's kind of new to this, what should they kind of expect in terms of stories compared to maybe something they just post on their feed?
Yeah. So the challenge is that it depends on how large your network is. So my network is about 4,500 contacts right now, right? And not everyone in my network actually has LinkedIn stories. And if no one has LinkedIn stories, I from my understanding, I could be completely wrong here, is that if you don't have it, I don't know if you can see other people's stories. You might not. Like you said, you don't have LinkedIn stories on your account, but can you see other people's stories or no?
I can't. I don't
Okay.
see them. I don't see them at all, at least not on desktop.
Okay. So, and so I don't know if you can see this, but you can kind of see, that's what my stories looks like. And essentially,
Okay.
as I kind of scroll over, I probably have a handful, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 people that I can see so far that have LinkedIn stories. And so out of a network of 4,500 contacts, 30 or 40 people, that's what, less than 1%. It's a pretty small, it's a pretty small network. And so your reach is going to be very limited. I mean, I've seen views of anywhere 5 to 10, maybe 15 views. And that's okay for me because I'm not doing it for, for John. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it because I need to get my message out there. I need to clarify my message. I need to make sure I feel confident in what I'm talking about. And I need to put myself as an authority. Eventually, it's going to start growing as more people get more access to LinkedIn stories. So, is it giving me leads? No, it's still giving me, another area on getting my message out, which is important because some people like to take it, through quick little 60-second clips of something. Others want to scroll through their news feed. And so right now, news feeds are still better, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using LinkedIn stories, because this basically says that LinkedIn is committed to pushing this, but they're doing it in a slow format. They don't want it to be destroyed like Instagram and Facebook, where it's overwhelming and kind of pushing the platform a certain way.
That's interesting. So have you found that that it's still effective right now to be kind of investing the time into it?
I would say that's still up in the air. It's just like any new social media platform. What's the latest one right now? Twitch and TikTok, right? Those are some of the big ones. Like, first of all, my audience doesn't hang out there, but does it mean that you should never invest time into that? It just depends, I guess. Does it mean that I shouldn't invest time on LinkedIn stories? I don't think so, because I believe LinkedIn would not deploy a new feature and roll it out slowly if they weren't committed to it. And so, like everything, you just got to try. And there's like, I don't think 10 years ago, you and I could have both said, man, LinkedIn is going to grow to become, one of the best organic reach, platforms for B2B companies. Like, we both probably would have laughed and joked and be like, no, Facebook's going to dominate. and then all of a sudden, like, there's a shift in this LinkedIn and this world that people are like, this LinkedIn stuff actually works. So the beauty about it is that you can basically do 60-second clips. Like, it will wait. If you did 5 videos or 5 clips a day, that's what, 5 minutes. Like, I'm pretty sure most people can create 5 minutes worth of content to talk about something. It won't destroy their day. And it's just another angle of who you are. And that's the thing that I love about the stories, is that it shows the actual entrepreneur, or shows the CEO, or it shows the person, like, you're there with them. And all of a sudden, like, there's flesh to that person, because we just see them through a digital device. That's it. But then now we're like, oh, wow, this is what they're working on. They struggle through my same struggles. And all of a sudden there's like some sort of relation, and you're creating this relationship with that person. So I think it's worth it. I mean, the results aren't huge for me, but would they be bigger for other bigger audiences? Yeah. If you have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, you probably have a larger reach on your stories, but that's a given.
So if we take stories versus the feed itself, you said kind of the content that you're putting in there is more little snippets of your day, kind of what you're working on, versus more perhaps what would be kind of more insightful types of posts that you would expect to see in the feed. Am I kind of on the right track there?
Correct. So basically I use stories more as a documentary. It's more of like, or I propose a question, or I say, like, for instance, I did a story right before this interview. I said, hey, I'm going to be interviewed on a podcast, and it's called Pipelineology, et cetera. And, love to have you guys check it out whenever it's available. So I did it to do a quick little announcement. The idea is that I use it more of like proposing questions, or what I might also do is I might make a post on my LinkedIn feed about something, whatever. Let's say it's about, my number one social media hack or something like that. Then I'll go to stories and just say, hey, check out my news feed. I talk about this really awesome hack that helped me grow my business at X. I'm not saying I do those kind of things, but I'm just using it as an example. So I use stories to kind of support what I'm putting into my news feed. And so if someone's kind of scrolling in and kind of checking it out, like, all right, let's see what this Javier guy's talking about. And so they'll go into my profile, they'll go into, actually digging into the news feed, and they're like, oh, interesting. This is a pretty cool thing. They might comment, they might, share it, something like that. So I'm using it kind of in conjunction with each other. But I mean, ultimately it's, I think at the moment, cause it's only been around for like what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe, like I think the major influencers on LinkedIn got it immediately. So like all the people that are like 30,000 plus connections, they got it like instantaneously, like it's yours. And so I want to say that like, it's still kind of in deliberation. Like we're trying to figure this out. And I mean, I know a lot of influencers that still don't have it, and they're like, what's going on? So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way LinkedIn likes to kind of roll out their features. Like I know you mentioned earlier that you've got LinkedIn Live, and I know people are just like, so many people have been trying to figure out, how do I get approved for that? How do I get approved for that? Because it seems like it's this mythical thing that 1 out of 100 people might be granted access to the LinkedIn Lives.
It took me 18 months to get access to LinkedIn Live. No, actually, I think it took me longer, to be honest. Well, I found out about it last year around May. And I was like, this is cool. So I started, like any marketer, Googling everything. Like, how do you get LinkedIn Live? And then, you're looking at it and you're like, you have to apply for this? Like, this is stupid. I mean, like when Facebook Live came out, I was like, it just showed up on your account. You're like, this is weird. And then you push it and you're like, I'm live. and then people like are freaking out, like, how are you live right now? I'm like, I don't know. I'm telling news stories. And so, so I expected that. And so I'm like, I have to apply for this. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to apply for it. So I applied for it. I'm like, I'll probably get approved for it. Thinking in my head, I'm like, I put out content and, I'm part of the platform. I help. Nothing, like ghosts. And then like 2 or 3 months later, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it again. So I apply again. Nothing, ghosts. And I'm like, man, this is annoying. So I continue that process. And then I started doing some more research on finding the people that got approved for it. So I watched the video. The guy's like, you just got to basically produce a lot of video content. And as you do that, you start building like, hey, you're going to contribute on video as well too. And even though my video content didn't get the same amount of reach as my like images and text, I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. So I started doing that for a good solid 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And before that, I had applied for it, and then I started putting a bunch of video content. And then all of a sudden I got an email in my inbox, like, you're approved for LinkedIn Live. I'm like, you're kidding. And so it's a process to get it all set up after that. So that's another story. I won't even go into that. But anyways, I agree with you. What you're saying is that LinkedIn I would agree with what this one thing is, that they do a good job limiting on how people get access to certain things, because they don't want it to be destroying their platform. They want a professional image for their platform. And I respect that. I mean, I think that's an amazing thing, because that's one of the reasons why I love LinkedIn in the way they're doing business.
Yeah, it's definitely different from, the experience is different from what you see on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It's just a totally different place. Like, I don't feel bad spending time there, whereas I think some of the other platforms get really toxic. Whereas LinkedIn does a
Yep.
pretty good job. It's not perfect, but compared to everybody else, they're very far above everybody else in terms of what you see and how people engage professionally.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I mean, that's again the main reason why I love being on there is because I can have professional conversations. I don't want to talk about all the other nonsense and toxic kind of stuff. Like I want to get away from that and just provide value and knowledge and literally do this, what we're doing, talking shop. And if it helps someone else how to figure something out, great. You help contribute to their life and that's amazing. And that's kind of how I see it when it comes to leveraging LinkedIn is that, keep it professional, but there's one piece that I want people to also think about because some people almost get too professional, they're like, well, you have to have a suit and tie kind of thing. Here's the thing, like, I think we live in a world of transparency now. It's really imperative. Like if you're not transparent about who you are, what you do, that sort of stuff, people will kind of get a little like gun shy with you. They're like, they don't want to get too close to you. And so I think it's important on LinkedIn, and this is where stories comes into play again, is to show a transparent side of who you are. Don't just show professional Javier and professional Gary, like show a side of who you are. Like, like do a video with your kids and you're talking about marketing, or something like that. And like, but what you're doing again is that you're showing a side of like, hey, you're human, like you're personal, or I'll do this occasionally. I'll have like, today's workout today was this. And most of my content has nothing to do with workouts. But you know what? What I'm doing is I'm showing a transparent side of me. I'm like, hey, I take time to make my body better. This makes me perform better at work. This makes me think better for my clients. This makes me put out better marketing content. And I do this because of this. So I kind of put a spin to it. And that way people see it. Another one was like I had a business trip and, took pictures with my kids. That one got a ton of engagement. But the thing is that I was talking about my kids and how valuable it is to spend time with them and stuff like that, but how much I enjoy going out and helping businesses grow. Those are things that I think are important on LinkedIn that people kind of miss. And I think that we need to start thinking about creating a level of transparency, but still being professional in that same aspect.
No, I think you're totally right. I think at the end of the day, people still buy from other people.
Yep.
It's not right. They don't buy from companies. They buy from a person at the company that talks to them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's why go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying I think it's just a really good takeaway there is that be a human. Be a human.
Exactly. I heard this podcast, I'd say it was almost 2 years ago. Are you familiar with Donald Miller?
I'm not.
All right. Donald Miller has his own company called Story Brand. He talks about creating stories and how to sell your business and stuff like that as far as creating stories. So he has a podcast called, what's it called? Story Brand Podcast, I think. I forget. Anyways, one of the podcasts, he interviewed somebody and they were talking about marketing stuff. And the person goes, I don't believe in B2B and B2C. I believe in H to H. And I'm like, there you go. That's what I've been thinking about in my head. I just couldn't put it into words. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. It's human to human. And it's not B2B, it's not B2C. And people will still argue this to the end of the earth. It's like, well, B2B is different. It is, but the thing is that you're still communicating with a human. I don't care if it's 10 humans that you have to pitch to and sell, they're still humans. You still have to get into an emotional level with them. You still have to get down to the pain points. You still have to actually get in there and essentially relate with them. Because that's how humans are designed to engage and interact, is in those aspects. And so I agree with you 100% on that, is that it's a human type of element that we're kind of sometimes missing because of the industry or niche that we're in. Yeah,
totally agree. And it's one of those, I've actually read the book and I totally forgot his name. So thank you for reminding me. Yeah, it's a good stuff. It is a good book. I really liked it. So
yeah, one of my favorites.
So is there anything I should be asking you that you're thinking, boy, if Gary would just ask me this, I've got some great content to share in this. This would really help people. Is there anything I haven't asked yet?
I don't think so, but I'd be easy to share this is that, when using LinkedIn, as far as just posting on your newsfeed, and then if you have access to stories and using stories, think about just like what I kind of do for myself is think about the things that you really enjoy doing and what you really are good at doing. I read this book called Traffic Secrets with Russell Brunson. And he has this concept that he follows called JK5 that he learned from somebody else. I don't want the JK is the initials of the person that created it. So anyways, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but essentially what it is that you pick out 5 things that define who you are and what you do, kind of, so that if people can see an image of those things, then they would know, be like, oh, Gary does this. He likes these 5 things. And so like, for instance, for mine were marketing, family, wellness, business systems, and I want to say maybe sales. I forget. I have to look at my list. And so I find images that support that, that piece. So if it's marketing, it's going to be images about marketing. And then if it's, wellness, it'll be images about wellness. So not just like working out. Wellness can be like, drinking water daily and why it does well for you, that kind of stuff. Like, and then you tie it to what you focus on. So if you focus on like, running a marketing agency or a fractional CMO, then you tie it to that. Anyways, what I do is I take the time to write content for each image, if you will, just a little bit of stuff. And so I'll do this like on a Saturday or Sunday, and then I'll post these things. They're already pre-written, they're done. And I'll post these things just like Monday, these 3 posts will be going out, like, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Like not literally at those times, I'm just using an example. And it will be, one post will be about marketing, another post will be about business systems, another post will be about family. And then the next day I'll go into maybe wellness and then sales and then marketing. And then that way, what it's doing, it's hitting all these things so that if someone looked at my newsfeed, they're like, oh, Javier talks a lot about these things. These are important to him. He's knowledgeable in this. And then you can use that same strategy to use it in your stories as well too. So like if you're doing those images, talk about an image or an event in your story for 60 seconds, find a way how to make it into a 60-second story. And that way you're kind of touching everything. And so that's just one little piece of thing that I do for myself, for my business. And then what I do for clients and help them actually create this is doing that piece, because people get overwhelmed and like, well, how do I post and what do I post? I'm like, just sit down, take the time, figure out these, what you want to, 5 things to represent. And then you just create your post based on like education or information or like something like that. And then have a call to action. Something like, if you agree, like, or if you can relate, tell me your story, something like that. But don't pitch, like let people get into your story so that they feel like they're a part of it. And I guess this really goes along with what we're talking about the entire time. Stories is so that people get inside of that person's story so they feel like they're a part of it as well too.
I think that's a really neat kind of insight into the whole thing, and probably kind of a good place to kind of let people just leave on that note rather than getting into the weeds of the technical stuff. I'm sure I could ask technical questions all day, but so if somebody's interested in kind of learning more about what it is you do, getting into your story and your world, what's the best way for them to do that?
So a couple things, you can email me, javier.lozano.jr@gmail.com. So that's my personal email address. And basically it's just, the way you see it on here, you'll probably tag me whenever you post this as well too. What I want to do is anyone that's interested, I've got these 8 marketing secrets or marketing strategies that I've used for the past 17 years of marketing my own personal business, other, businesses, and also helping, organizations right now to grow their business. That has basically made me millions of dollars in marketing. And I'd love to give that out for free. It's 8 of them. And it's just essentially tells you like the things to look at. It's like a checklist. Like you need to be doing this and this is how you do it. You need to be doing this and this is how you do it. You need to be doing this and this is how you do it. So it's just a checklist of things, because right now marketing is really it's overwhelming, and it's okay to be overwhelmed. It's like, there's so many, channels to be in. Like, how do you do this? And how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I figure like, if I give you a checklist, then at least you have some sort of like control and slowly grow from there. If you want to actually have an actual marketing conversation and you think that you need services or help, then I'd love to help you. Let's sit down and see if this could be a great, working relationship. And, what we'll do is just, create a 30 to 45 minute kind of, discovery call, if you will, to see, where you're at and to see if it's a good fit for both of us, and see if we can put a strategy together that will help grow your business. But the end of the day, what I want to do is I want to give that piece of value for anybody. So you can access that by sending me an email, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Again, it's just going to be my full name, Javier Lozano Jr. If you put in the slash and then put my full name, you'll find me on there. Send me a DM or send me a connection. I'm happy to send that to you as well too. I'm still retweaking my website, so that's why I'm not sending you guys to a website at the moment.
Well, very cool. We will definitely put your profile link in the show notes so that if anybody is interested, they can find you there as well.
Awesome. Appreciate the time, Gary. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Hey, it's Editor Gary. Just wanted to throw in one more quick little tidbit because I think it could be really helpful for anybody doing any type of prospecting or follow-up on LinkedIn. And that is that you can see by name who is viewing your stories. So if you've got a prospect that maybe they've kind of fallen out of touch, or you're not sure if they're hot or cold, or they haven't really been responsive, so you've kind of given up on them, and you see that they're engaging with your stories again. Again, like I said, you can see them by name. Might be worth following up with them. I just had somebody reach out to me today because I viewed their story and boom, they followed up with me to see what was going on. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that is one of the really powerful features of LinkedIn stories. All right, that really is the end of today's episode. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pipelineology podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.